Um, so, uh, so essentially we have a board. So this time I will try to go through the board. We will try to use it and figure out how is it usable. You have the automation progress in process. So if eventually you pick up tickets and they are being moved with different statuses and then being closed, the pull request being closed, the ticket will be reflected as well. So there is some kind of automation. It is not really perfect right now, but hopefully we'll improve it with time. So let's probably start with the pull requests which are in progress right now. Now we have a very nice pull request from the Zilpri guys for fixing conflicting volumes. This probably already reviewed and QA in progress by Andrei. There was only one question for Andrei regarding the ports, but I suppose we should automatically change port. Eventually, I would say that this pull request does not address this issue, and it does not supposed to. So my comment will be we can go on with this, and Andrei can follow up and create ticket for this particular issue. Because currently, I really agree with Matt that having multiple of Docker projects running locally is kinda overkill, and probably we need to make some adjustments to make this work because it's consuming a lot of memory and it's not currently very usable. Does anybody have objection regarding this point?
I think when running multiple projects, I'm not really having multiple projects running at one time. So for instance, I'll shut down one project before I start up the next, and that way there's no problems with the port. So I think that would be one way to simplify the problem, is to just shoot for being able to run multiple projects just one at a time instead of simultaneously.
That's what this ticket actually allows for. It adds a prefix to the volume names so that when you down the containers, it doesn't have to, the volumes don't conflict between projects. As long as you change the name in Magento YAML from my Magento to something else, they won't conflict.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Yeah. Okay, so Andrei, please finish the QA activities, and I think we are pretty good with this very useful pull request. Next one was eventually pretty interesting but problematic in some way pull request from Zilpri guys regarding the website support in the Cloud Docker. And I know the Matt also wanted to discuss this ticket. So eventually we just a little bit follow up on the story. So the fix is pretty simple, and I can just open the pull request which was delivered as this. Okay, so the fix is pretty simple and pretty obvious. We just add the auto-append file into the php.ini configuration file, and it works. The only problem actually with this approach is that for some reason in our containers it's throwing the warnings which are eventually in some way being converted into the exceptions, that this file is included multiple times. And I honestly thought that the problem is because of my way of testing when I using a Docker Compose override file. But the thing that once we build these images on Docker Hub, and I just had to look in the pull request into GitHub, which eventually uses the images which we just built. It's showing the same error, so it was not my local problem. The error that let me open this. So the error that it uses So yeah, so all of the images are broken, and it shows the error which actually says that enable. Okay, what is it? Yeah, here it is. But I cannot declare each HTTP host previously declared. So, and I honestly doesn't know the reason of this error. For some reason, image includes these files 2 times, and I wasn't able to currently fix this error. So to not block actually people who use in the Elop branch and to not use to not block EC tools and the EC patches delivery process, we decided to currently roll back this change and reopen issue because it would block delivery.
I think we're going to change the way we're doing this. We'll put it into a different INI file. I think. We'll see. Like, but take it out for now and rebuild your images, and then we'll figure it out and get you a fix for it. It's really weird. I don't know why it's doing it twice. I did some Googling, and I don't see anybody complaining about this. It's kind of specific to our Docker images, so I'll play with it and figure it out. Shouldn't take too long.
Yeah, thank you. So this pull request, this issue is reopened and under 104 ID. So eventually, Wilker guys will try to dig into this and figure out what's happened. If you guys need any help, please feel free to reach. We have some capacity to help with some digging into this. Next one is in our backlog is Docker compose files with multiple users from SQL configured. So I know guys from Zilker also. Oh no, what not?
Yeah. So
Is
on
it
this
help?
one, yeah, it's assigned to Oleg. So the developers held off on starting it. Let me see who Mohan
Yeah.
in both cases.
Yeah, it's very interesting because Matt, I cannot find you in this in this.
Oh, yeah, you got to find me
assignment.
by my pseudo, AEPOD. And plus, I only have one P in my name.
Nope.
Weird.
Yeah, it's very weird. I tried to figure out what's happening, but for some reason I cannot find the inner sign.
I'm Matthew without
And
with one T.
with one T.
Yep, one T. Matthew is.
Matt.
Yep, and then HEW, like Matthew with only one T.
Right.
No, you can't find me. That's so weird. Okay.
I will assign it to the pull request author, I think, because I don't really know what's happening. It just does not give me possibility to assign a ticket to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that one and then 168 as well. That they're ready to work on both those.
168. Let me. What is 168?
That was like the health check one.
What? Why there's no one?
Add additional health checks. It's at the bottom there.
And what's the issue?
Add additional health checks. Scroll down a bit.
Okay, sorry, I see.
There it is.
Okay. Is there a specific person from your team who is working on this issue?
Yes, let me figure that out.
Yeah, so small update actually for, if you remember, our maintenance initiative. So we will try to move forward this week. So you guys will get the specific rights, and there are two guys from the Zilker who will get the permissions to actually assign these tickets and move these tickets. So I will not. I will figure out the problem with your assignee name, but I hope you will be able to do it by yourself.
I
For
put
now,
the
I just
name in
move this
chat
to
there
the.
for you. It's
Okay.
Vizanth.
Okay.
Vizanth.
Okay. Let me check. Okay, I don't really know what's happening.
Okay,
Okay.
that's fine. As long
Okay.
as long as you're not going to work on them,
Mhm.
then they'll work on them.
Okay. Good. Good. Okay. What do we have next one in our backlog? So there is a draft for me. Draft for the Cloud Docker technical vision. I still actually working on this, so we will skip for now. The idea is actually to describe the long-term and short-term goal for these projects. And we will discuss this internally this week. So we want to move this project into some unified solution for all of the Magento developers, not the Magento Cloud developers. So I think I will have more update to this ticket later this week. But if you would like to browse it, it's kind of available, so you can already start writing some comments. Next one is eventually we started to add in docs tickets. So ticket number 156. And the idea is actually to cover part in our dev docs how to add custom Elasticsearch plugin into the Elasticsearch, I would say, container image. So because there is no automated way, you will just describe this and create the pull request into dev docs. Does this seem good? Any objections? Okay, I'll put this into the approved, accepted, and the ready for development. So you can see these tickets in ready for development column. And if you have capacity, please feel free to take them. Next ticket is pretty similar, but we have some kind of functionality for this. So we have a PHP Extensions class, and eventually this documentation update will cover the flow how to add custom extension to our Docker images. So whoever will take this, he just create the proper pull request into the docs and describe the flow how we add the new extensions. Any objections?
Well, that's a good one.
Okay. I'm not
We
sure
already
if
have
there
some
is.
stuff there, so we can just like develop that a little further. We already have something very close to that. I think that didn't get pulled in during the merging when I redid all the docs. There was a couple things that didn't get in, so I've got something for that.
Cool. So let's move to ready for development and accepted. Feel free to pick it up. Next one is adding new version of existing service. So eventually, if you a little bit know about how the core is going right now, so they are in very, I would say, proactive mode. They are updating new compatibility with new services. They adding Elasticsearch 7.2. They adding MariaDB, new version, whatever one, 10.4. So they are adding a lot of new services. And eventually we want to be on the same track. So probably in this task we will have to create the DevDocs guide how third-party developers can add new services or a new version of services to our Cloud Docker solution, which is not a big deal, but we need some kind of guide for this. Any objections on this stuff?
No, that's another one very similar. I had to figure out how to do that to do the Elasticsearch ticket recently, so probably do that one.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Thank you. Okay, this one I think we already. Okay, this one separate from the docs. Eventually, if you remember, our Magento Cloud configuration service.yaml, there is a possibility to programmatically specify what kind of Elasticsearch plugins you would like to use. This is a kind of nice feature, but it needs pretty much development efforts to implement something similar, because you have to create some resolving mechanism and so on, so on. So we decided to put this ticket into our community backlog. If somebody would like to take care of this, it is available for picking up. Yeah. So, any objections to this ticket?
Oh, that makes sense.
This could be pretty complicated, so I would not rush with the ticket, because the docs update will be much simpler. But eventually, if you feel like you have enough capacity, please feel free to take this one. Okay. Next one. What is this? Remove PHP requirement for documentation build. Okay, I think this one has a lot of updates. Eventually, the idea is, I think, to have out-of-the-box Docker setup. Let me scroll down.
To really solve this, so we do this often. This building inside of the instances, there's a command there that shows the Docker command, and then somebody used that same Docker command and added some shell scripts that run like the Magento command inside of Docker and so on. It's a good way to do it, but it really is. It needs to be scripted. Like we need to publish. Yeah, exactly. This one.
Yeah, this is what Ben Batchelor from our team did recently, and we merged it. So this thing added the script init Docker shell, which has some logic where you specify what kind of version you want. It has some logic to add the
Yeah, and I mean this
yeah.
same thing can be done for, like to handle the composer install inside of the container. However, it just gets really tricky. And then I know I brought up an issue I found over the weekend where in the images it's setting up the root.composer directory, which means that it can't be brought into the container correctly unless you specify it every single time. So if you like do a Docker compose run, you have to specify the composer directory, and it doesn't always yield to it either. Because of the way it's declared.
I think this
like
is
that
what
that doesn't actually work. Yeah, the cache
No?
doesn't actually come in when you do that.
Oh, shoot. Hi.
It may, but like if you had an auth too, it won't work. Because Docker, when you declared the composer cache, it created the .composer directory above it, and it doesn't allow you to mount to it if the volume is declared in the Docker file.
Okay, so it's creating the volume for the cache, but then it blocks creating the composer volume. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you can't have volume inside of Docker files.
Right.
It like breaks Docker compose. The sucky thing about that is that if you are running Docker commands, you have to actually do it yourself, right? But like it's like if it's in the Docker file, it has to be exactly as it says it is. Otherwise, it won't work. You can't like override it correctly.
Okay, so if we try and make sure that volume flag matches what's in Docker Compose, would that kind of help resolve that?
You would take it out of the Docker file, take the volume out of there. I was going to make a ticket that describes all this anyways, But yeah, we got to take it out of the Docker file. Like you'd still be able to declare it and use it and stuff. We might need to make the directory too. Like instead of just like declaring the volume, you make the directory, and then in Docker Compose, it's already mounting. You'll have to mount it there, right? If you we have it in Docker Compose override where before this change was put in, we were just mapping the composer directory in so that it got auth and it also got the composer cache directory. But post this change in the images. Yeah, that right there. That line breaks mounting volumes into Composer. You can't mount to root Composer off. You can't mount to anything because Composer didn't actually exist before that point or something. The .composer directory, so the volume declared it. I don't know. It definitely doesn't work though anymore. So I can't, like every time I build with Composer inside of a container now, it has to re-get the whole cache.
Oh, this makes sense.
So yeah, that line has to go out.
Yeah, could you please create a ticket? Oh yeah, I can create this ticket after. Yeah.
No, I meant to have it before, but I've been very busy this morning, so.
Okay, but overall, does this pull request and this nice shell script, does it solve the ticket that Joe created previously?
Well, one roadblock I think a lot of people experience with running things inside the containers is managing authorizations. So, for instance, an SSH key or a composer authorization set up in an environment variable outside of the containers sometimes causes these things to fail when they're run inside the container. I don't know if anyone believes that totally eliminating PHP from the build process is possible. I know it sounds crazy, but if anybody has a good idea for that, I think that's more what I was getting to.
We'll start the whole thing in Python.
No, I think that with a little documentation, we can show people how to map in their authentication and their SSH keys correctly, as long as we get it working. And it works really good when it works. Like that's how I was doing all of our builds, and it was recycling the composer cache, and everything was awesome until that volume got there. So you're right, it's a little tricky. The context thing is definitely tricky, but it removes the PHP requirement in the VM or wherever you're doing it. The one place it really doesn't help in some ways still is Windows, because this solution has a shell script, and honestly, I don't necessarily care. Sounds crazy, but like the Windows portion of this project has far greater issues. Like it does not run well in Windows native Docker desktop. Like until you address that, I don't care if you have a way to instance it exactly without running PHP or whatever. Like you're kind of on your own if you're running Windows. The way that it's suggested, and I think the documentation should really reflect, is that people are using a VM in Windows. If they're running Windows, they should be running it inside of a VM on their own. They shouldn't be using Docker desktop because it works far better, and then you can use these shell scripts. So.
Yeah, I totally agree. I heard there is actually some updates to the Linux subsystem for Windows, which actually adds some kind of pre-installer to whatever Linux build. But if people go such far, I would say to make things going, it will be easier to just install some virtual machines. So yeah, it's kind of complicated for Windows.
And what I was looking at that ticket, that the Linux subsystem for Windows, it wouldn't totally resolve everything like the host file probably be
No.
fixed there. I wanted to kind of go back real fast. We're talking about some of the flaws of the running the Docker commands. I may be making this up, but isn't there a way to forward environment variables from your host environment into Docker, and that might be another kind of small fix for the auth issue, or is that something that I'm misremembering?
No, that's true. And I was looking at that, so we don't leverage, env at all. Like a lot of Docker projects use .env and use those as, and then any variables also in their environment. But like, okay, so I work on multiple projects. The problem I have is that my Composer cache, I'm okay with that being the same on every project, but I'm not okay with Composer auth being the same on every project. So I have to actually switch my local environment to point at different auths, right? I at auth.json, because one client has these enterprise keys and whatever for their back end, and this other client has different ones, right? I can't build with the same keys, but the cache is fine. So I map those in. I just in the Docker Compose overrides, you just map it into the right file. And it can be named different files. In my .composer, I actually have different composer or auth.json .client name. You know what I mean? Like one for each client, and then I map them in. So, and SSH keys tend to be shared per developer, so you're one developer. And same with Git commands, like you're one person, so like your Git credentials typically are always the same. So it works really well in that context. Like I can work on multiple projects and have different composer auths and have my Git keys the way I need that, or my SSH keys, and I think it's just a matter of communicating that process and then making sure that that we can actually map the composer directory correctly using Docker Compose or these Docker commands, and then wrapping them in scripts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds good.
So say for instance you had a separate auth that you needed to use or a separate directory. We could have a flag on the script that's calling it that allows you to use a different composer directory locally and define what that path is.
Sure. That
So
seems like a worthy addition.
Yeah, so we definitely have ways to solve this with this method, and I really encourage us, even though it's more difficult for developers, one of our goals should be to help them understand Docker. They're a lot of them are coming into this, they're new, and if we could help them understand what Docker Compose, and what the I find that that's super helpful for the developers I'm working with if I just explain what the commands are doing outright. You know what I mean? Instead of just trying to fix the problem. So that's part of the reason why I have not made any shell scripts, like helper scripts. If you look at Mark Schuss project or Warden, you'll find that there are 100 or more of these helper scripts doing these jobs. And I'd rather see us going sort of less is more and teaching people how to do it and letting them build what they need from it.
So. But those scripts, though, are the most effective way for people to learn because they can see what's going on in the minds of the creators that created the solution. They're not an impediment to learning.
Oh, that's true. Although in both cases, you'll find that they're so opinionated in the methods that they're using that they lock you in, where we don't have that luxury. Both Warden and Schuss Project lock you into a very specific way of doing it, and so do we. And I'm not against them either, right? If we want to go that route, we can just define what helper scripts we want, and we'll make them real quick. It's not that hard. And I think that's a totally valid point, that it would help them learn. But we have to be careful, is what I mean, because the scripts are our opinions, and people will use them.
Yeah, totally agree with this. And the Marxist actually uses different approach. I think we previously somewhere discussed this because it doesn't use async mutagen, it doesn't use Docker sync. So eventually you have a way to scripted which just copies wall files from host machine to the Docker, and so that's even different approach, I would say, to the Magento development itself. Okay, so I think I will keep this ticket open. Let's finish discussion with Ben. Let's fix the volume part in Docker file, and probably we can then have some opinion regarding this, and probably we will go. Anything else, guys, regarding this ticket?
No,
this was a really good first effort. I appreciated it, and like we'll just have to continue adding to it,
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Improving it.
Cool. Thank you so much. Okay, so this one interesting as well. I think I saw something similar with this database. I think this has some same root cause because we does not handle properly such complicated YAML constructions. So the case here is actually if you specify the Blackfire configuration in your Magento YAML, the build will fail and then you will have nothing. Yeah, even I know that we actually removing Blackfire support, we still this construction will still exist, so we need to fix this case. I see one comment from Matt. When it is fixed, please ensure request info is possible to use. Okay. Any particular questions to this ticket? Okay. Moving ready for development, please feel free to pick it up. Okay. Next one. What is this? Improve mount management. Why it's strange. Not sure why it's showing on the board because it's already solved. Give us ability to multiple projects with different volumes. I think this is what guys currently fixed it. Yeah, so this is one in progress. Yeah, this one is good. Let me just put it into the progress. And I'm really not sure what's happening with my assignee list because I really cannot find people. Okay, I'll just. That's strange. Okay. Okay, next one was this one. I'm not sure if we can do anything. Secure connection works with warning regarding certificate. Guys, maybe you have anything for this ticket because I was trying to investigate this and I haven't found any way how to make browser work with the self-signed certificate actually into the Docker. Guys, do you have anything regarding this?
I can't remember if I've seen that before or not.
Hey, can you hear me? This is Sandeep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had actually looked into this and I actually found a couple of solutions that could possibly work, but it was different based on the operating system. So there wasn't one single solution that we could use to solve this issue. That is operating system independent. I'm not entirely sure if we can do this.
Yeah, I was kind of for this too, since I knew sort of a little bit about that operating system issue as well. And while I was working on that shell script, I figured that would be a good opportunity to add this in. But yeah, it gets, once you go beyond Mac OS, it gets exponentially complicated because you've got to then look at, different Linux distros, which use different browsers. And I know the command to add this into Mac OS, it's pretty simple, but beyond that, it gets ugly fast.
So probably it's not a really big deal. How big problem is having actually the warnings in the browser? Maybe we just can ignore it and say that it's expected behavior if it's problem to fix this one.
I think it can be expected behavior because wouldn't any local environment have this problem unless people went to the extent of generating a signed certificate?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we assume this is a valid issue and we have to fix it, correct?
I don't know. I don't think we have to fix this issue.
No. Okay. Okay. I see something from Matt. There is an hazard. Best choice of. Okay, so I don't know. We can probably close this if we will have any more complaints, because this was, I think, internal issue, so nobody really complained about this. So probably we can close this as won't fix. Yeah, do you have anything maybe? Yes, yeah, cool. Okay. Okay, then I'm closing this ticket. Looks like really nobody really cared about it. So if somebody will have any strong opinion, please feel free to reopen and you can take care. But let's close this one. Okay. What did we have else? Backfire. Cloud Docker. Okay, this is this is I was saying it will be an interesting topic because we removed Blackfire on the cloud, but eventually some people would like to have Blackfire. So I would say this is valid request. So I think this is pretty good. I will just move it to ready for development. Any objections to this? Okay.
I have a comment about the self-signed certificate issue.
Oh, yeah.
When I do development with local sites, HTTPS, I do have a self-signed certificate, but I have a self-signed master certificate that I install on. In my case, I use Windows. I have a VM where I do my Docker development, and then I have Windows where I actually have my browser. So I have the self-signed master certificate installed in Windows, and so any certificate made from that master one will validate as fine. So then in my VM, I create ones based on that master certificate. So maybe if there was some way to either import a master certificate into Cloud Docker, which the self-signed certificates were chained from, or some way to link that to where I can just have that one certificate installed manually and then have them automatically chain from that. Maybe that would be good because I've had a lot of success with that and it validates just fine.
I'd be a little cautious about that just because if we distribute a single master certificate, that means that it creates the ability for anybody to sign a domain and then suddenly SSLs.
Yeah, no, I would definitely not recommend that at all. I just meant like I generated one on my own. No one else has it.
Yeah.
No one else knows what it is. So if I can tell Docker to use that, then that would be great, right? I'm not saying that Docker would always use the same one. Docker would
Hmm.
use whatever one that I choose. So I would have to make it. I would have to
Maybe.
choose it.
Yeah.
That's something that would be useful to me personally, at least.
Yeah, but it's specific for Windows, and that's what with the cut it will be very different for Linux and for Mac. So probably
Well,
we
I
can
think it would.
document it.
Yeah. No, I think it would apply to Linux and Mac as well. But yeah, I can do more on that, or if you guys want to skip it for now, it's fine too. Just thought I'd give my 2 cents on that.
Are you okay if I will assign this ticket to you, and you will figure out if there is anything that we can do?
Yeah, you can go ahead and assign that to me. That's fine.
Okay. Okay, so I'll just. Okay, yeah. So this is ticket number 45. So honestly, looks like we are done with our backlog. So that was pretty good. We have 10 issues ready to pick up, I think. So if you have any question, please let me know. Otherwise, I think we are good for today. And small reminder that we have bi-weekly demos. So if you guys have anything to show, we will be very happy to help you and assist you and have a demo with you. Thank you for good grooming.
Thanks, Oleg.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Have a
you.
good week.